Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to our patient webinar series, COVID-19, Maintaining a Healthy Lifestyle. So before we begin, I just want to go over some housekeeping reminders. This WebEx will be recorded, and the slides will be made available on the network's website. All lines have been muted to eliminate background noise. To ask a private question, use the chat section in the bottom right corner of your screen, sending to all panelists. To ask a question, for the answer to be shared with all attendees or privately, use the Q&A section in the bottom right corner of your screen. Network Program Overview. So the IPRO ESRD Network Service Area, we have 4 different service areas. Network 1, which is New England, which is made up of Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. We also have Network 2, which is just New York State. Network 6, which is the South Atlantic, is made up of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And Network 9, which is the Ohio River Valley, is made up of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. The mission of the IPRO End-Stage Renal Disease, or ESRD Network Program, is to promote healthcare for all ESRD patients that is safe, effective, efficient, patient-centered, timely, and equitable. The ESRD Network roles and responsibilities. The ESRD Network acts as liaisons between the Department of Health and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. We lead statewide quality improvement activities to improve quality of care for ESRD patients. We promote patient engagement, education, and patients' experience of care. We also provide technical assistance and grievance management for ESRD patients and providers. The ESRD network also supports ESRD data systems and data collection, analysis, and monitoring for improvement. Further, we support emergency preparedness and disaster response. Lastly, we collaborate with dialysis facilities and transplant centers. COVID-19 community impact. The COVID-19 pandemic has created a complex and stressful situation for the ESRD community. The network has been working very closely with our Patient Advisory Committee and our overall patient service area. We've conducted numerous discussion groups, and these discussion groups have provided us insight into the overall feelings of our patient population. Patients have stated having trouble adjusting to social distancing, external stressors like the behaviors of other people, fear of the unknown, dialysis treatment changes, time duration, treatment seating, not being able to have their caregivers in treatment with them. And we've also noticed patients have become consumed by these issues or troubles adjusting, and their thoughts are continuously about their changes in treatment, their social distancing, how they can stop the transmission of COVID, and how can they maintain their health within a dialysis center. But this overconsumption of these thoughts has left them vulnerable to behaviors that may promote an unhealthy lifestyle. So today's presentation, I would like to introduce Dr. Ashta Mutreya. Dr. Mutreya is a board-certified internal medicine and obesity medicine physician. She received her medical degree from St. George's University School of Medicine and completed her residency training at Stony Brook University Hospital. She has a personal interest in promoting a holistic lifestyle for her patients by using a combination of behavioral modification, motivational interviewing, and lifestyle medicine. She is currently working at the IPRO ESRD Network of New York team as she completes her training in preventative medicine. Now I would like to introduce Stephanie Dixon. Stephanie has been a dialysis patient for over 15 years. Stephanie is a Network TAC Senior Advisor for the ESRD Network of New York and a Legacy Patient Subject Matter Expert for the ESRD National Coordinating Center. Stephanie has also maintained the position as the head New York State representative in the Kidney Patient Advisory Council, and she is also part of the CDC Make Dialysis Safe Coalition. Further, Stephanie is also the CFO of the New York State CKD Champions, whose mission is to provide information, resources, and support to the CKD community. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Ashta Muthreya and Stephanie Dixon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Danielle, for that introduction. I'm excited to be here with you today and talk about this topic that's very near and dear to my heart and my practice. I've had the opportunity to listen to some of the previous webinars in this series, and I just love the idea of this series because it's a way to reconnect to our goals, and that's what maintaining a healthy lifestyle is all about. My clinical practice is geared towards treating patients that have difficulty in managing their weight. And a lot of what I do in my clinical visits is just talk about healthy habits for long-term success. Next slide. So these are the objectives we're going to run through today. We're going to talk about finding your motivation, goal setting, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, behaviors that help people stick to healthy eating patterns, a little bit about activity in this time period, and the role of sleep and coping with stress. Next slide. So we can spend hours discussing what we should be doing to stay healthy and stick to our goals, but without knowing why, the reality is that these behaviors don't often tend to last for a long time. So it's really important to know your own internal motivations for making a change in your life and to reaffirm these motivations on a daily basis or more as needed. Stephanie, I was just wondering if you could chime in with some of your own motivations in sticking to a healthy lifestyle.
The main reason I stick to a healthy lifestyle as often as possible is because I feel better. I'm also a mother and a grandmother, and I want to be here to see the evolution of my family.
That's great. Yeah, and those motivations, like Stephanie mentioned, they can be, external. A lot of patients have told me that, I want to make a healthy change right now because I want to be there, be able to enjoy playing with my grandkids, and the way my conditioning right now, I can't do that. So realizing this really helps get you in the mindset for maintaining healthy habits and sticking to whatever change you want to make in your life. Next slide. This is a quote by John Kabat-Zinn. We take care of the future by taking care of the present now. John Kabat-Zinn has written a lot about mindfulness and is the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which is in a lot of hospitals and healthcare facilities as a way to manage stress, cope with stress, and cope with chronic illness. And this, I think, idea is so important right now because a lot of the times when we're uncomfortable or in a place with or in a state of mind that has a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, we always think after this is done, then I'll be able to, get to my goals. But the reality is there's really no time like the present. And to get to that future, it's really important to address those issues right now at the current moment. Next slide. So goal setting is also really important to think about at the beginning, and addressing that "are you ready to change" question. I think we have to be honest with ourselves about what we can do in this moment, in this environment, especially given everything going on with COVID. It's changed a lot of our realities, a lot of our abilities to, go outside or engage with others. And goal setting should really be about habit forming and taken in small, achievable steps. I have a picture of a ladder here, which kind of relates to this because, our eventual goal will always be something that's this high, lofty thing that we might be able to achieve. But the really important part is to get to that goal with small, achievable steps. So assessing where you are right now and seeing what it's going to take to get to that next level. Next slide. So it's important to set expectations early. I talk about mindfulness is this big buzzword, but really what it is about paying attention to yourself and non-judgmentally. So maybe, if you set a goal for changing your diet in a certain way, but then, day 2 or day 3, you're no longer sticking to that diet. It's not about, oh, I wasn't able to do that, I lack discipline, or I can never do this. But it's about, okay, this didn't work for me for some reason. And maybe the goal wasn't right. Maybe the environment wasn't working. Mindfulness tells us not to blame ourselves, but really to sort of learn from our mistakes rather than as a prescription for the future. Next slide. So now we're going to switch over to talk about a little bit of behaviors that really have been shown to be successful for patients trying to lose weight or stick to a certain healthy habit. Writing things down is a way to self-monitoring is really the basis of this. And so writing things down, recording things, food diaries have shown to be really helpful. And they don't have to be anything fancy. It could just be something like a notepad and a piece of paper. Often you don't even have to be on a specific diet plan, but just the act of writing it down helps you think about what you're doing. It brings you in that present moment to be able to make those healthy changes. And the next thing I have here is daily check-ins and weigh-ins, which I know really in the dialysis community, you're used to this with monitoring your weight, monitoring your fluid status, and making sure that you're sticking to the right kind of diet that works for you. And the other part of self-monitoring is to really be accountable. Who are you accountable to? It can be to yourself, but often it's really helpful to be accountable to somebody else, either a partner, it could be to a physician or another provider. Me personally, I feel like I'm always accountable to my patients. I talk a lot about healthy living and healthy lifestyle, and I want to, practice what I preach, and whenever, and being in this community, being involved in these forums where I talk about healthy living and healthy lifestyle really helps me stay on track with my own goals.
I agree with you. I'm accountable to myself. I'm also accountable to my children. Therefore, I feel it's my right as a mother to interject my personal feelings when I see something in their lifestyle. They don't have to do it. They don't have to follow it. They're grown. But I also report to them when I'm having issues with my dialysis treatment, medication, how I'm feeling, fluid overload, whatever it is. I bring it to their attention. I don't see them every day, but I am accountable to myself and my children because I feel it's important to partner with someone so that you can stay on track.
That's really wonderful. And I think that also speaks to this, when you're trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle, it's so important to have that social support to change your own culture, into a culture of health and well-being. It helps when everybody around you is also in it with you and trying to do the same thing. And everybody is sort of clear on that goal with you.
Yes.
Next slide. So this is another thing that I think is really important to understand, and it speaks to sort of recognizing how our environment impacts us. We're hardwired to want things that make us feel good. We're often triggered by sights, sounds, smells, and past experiences. And, you know, back in a different time, this wasn't a big deal. This is what we needed to make sure we were eating right and getting enough nutrients. But right now we're living in this world where a lot of this stuff is plentiful, and it can be more harmful rather than helpful. I know that when I'm watching, a show on television and they're eating something that looks good, I all of a sudden I crave that food item, even though it's not in my diet plan. I don't have it in my house, but I just all of a sudden want it. And it's important to know that those signals are coming from a place where maybe it's a habit that we're used to, like a comfort food, for instance, but it's not necessarily something that's going to help us feel better. So it's really important to recognize your triggers, and to understand that we are creatures of habit. And when we're trying to change our habit, we have to work harder to maintain that healthy eating patterns. And it's important sometimes to uncouple the behaviors that are preventing you from sticking to your goals. So if you're always snacking while watching TV, sometimes doing those things separately will make you will require you to choose one or the other, and that might help you stick to what you have set out to do, that initial goal that you've outlined for yourself. Stephanie, you have some experiences to share in this regard.
Yes. Having adapted a healthier lifestyle, I don't buy junk food. So last week, I wanted some ice cream and I wanted a soda. I went to the store, I bought it, I had that one meal in moderation. I enjoyed it. But it did show up in my blood test, you know, the following day. But it was once, and I'm happy I did it. I enjoyed the ice cream. It's not something I often have. Soda is something I normally don't buy and consume, but I enjoyed it.
And I like that you had to go out and get it, because
Yeah.
that
At
makes
10
it
o'clock at night.
right. That makes it inconvenient for you. And often when things are inconvenient, the discipline already comes. Like, you wanted it at that point, and so you gave yourself a treat, and that's okay. But not having things at home, making sure not having things in your sight line automatically brings that ability to stick to something, stick to a behavior that you really want to stick to. A lot of times we've programmed ourselves to think like, oh my God, I'm never going to stop eating all of this food that isn't good for me because, I just always do it. But that might be because it's just always in your vision, always stimulating you. And you have that association where it, makes you feel better, and it's a comfort, and it's been a habit. But it's important to recognize that rem- removing that stimulation can really help you make a change, and it sometimes is vital to make that change. Next slide. So when we're talking about healthy eating patterns in general, I always say to all my patients that the diet that works is the one that you most enjoy. Healthy for one person isn't healthy for another person, isn't healthy for the third person. Even within a family, people have different health conditions, people have different different goals that they need to stick to, that they were told that they have to stick to. And on the eating for on the diet side of things, evidence shows that every diet produces a similar amount of weight loss over time. And the reality is, when you look at the data, it's some people have great success on one particular diet, but then on that same diet, some people will not lose any weight or gain weight. So it's really important to understand that there's no one size fits all, and the right diet is the one that works for you. I know, Stephanie, you had a very important experience when you were growing up about this, about healthy meaning different things.
Yes, when I was in my early 20s, my dad was diagnosed with heart disease. The doctor asked my father, "Is your wife a good cook?" He said yes. And the doctor responded, "Don't eat it." So my mom, what she did is she changed the diet for the entire family. She met with the dietitian and learned new ways to prepare food that was more healthy. So the healthy that was defined to me then is how I lived until I developed kidney disease. At that time, the diet changed, and I was told, you can't eat a banana, you can't eat ice cream, you can't have tomatoes, etc. So I had to develop a new healthy. Previously, if I was in the street, I would pick up a banana. You don't have to wash it. You can peel it, eat it, throw it away. It costs 25 cents. But that was no longer my go-to food. So I just had to readapt. And I learned that rather than concentrating on the foods that I can't eat, I learned to concentrate on the foods that I can. And that made it easier for me to be able to follow the renal diet.
I love that sentiment because, it's one where you don't feel deprived. You just have shifted to
Yes.
concentrating on something else and to focusing on what you and to getting enjoyment out of that something else. And so, really important tip is to slow down and enjoy the food that you can eat. Avoid multitasking while eating. Try to rest and put your utensil down in between each bite to help you savor your food, and then that really helps get that feeling of fullness, what we call satiety, which is so lost when we're stressed and busy and kind of on autopilot when we're eating. We don't actually get satisfaction from eating a meal that way, and then we feel like we're missing something. So I love that, concentrating on what you can have. Next slide.
Yes, not what you can't.
So this kind of feeds into just changing your thinking overall. In the news with COVID, we've been hearing a lot about the new normal. And before all of this, I had this thought for my own personal health and wellness goals about, why can't healthy be my new normal? Why can't that be something that I get enjoyment out of? And in stride with that, it's so important to celebrate all of your successes, however small they might be, planning for challenges and setbacks because they're part of the journey. And I think when I was talking to a lot of my patients through when this all first started, I just kind of the advice that I would give was just maintain what you've achieved, because that in and of itself, in a time of so much stress, is 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 um, is a feat in and of itself. That's something that requires a lot of energy, requires a lot of commitment. It requires us not to go back to old ways and old habits that weren't so good for us.
And rejoicing in the feeling good of it all. Because when, as a dialysis patient for myself, when I go off diet, when I'm fluid overloaded, I don't feel good and it's painful. But when I stick to it and I'm healthy and I'm strong, I'm able to go further, walk farther, feel better, do more. And it just makes me feel good.
And you've gotten to that point where, being healthy makes you feel good. And I challenge everyone to, if there's something to sort of tell yourself that you're feeling good, when you're doing something like this is great, associate those positive feelings with that positive behavior. And eventually you will get to that point that Stephanie is describing of it actually resulting in that effect. Next
The
slide.
worst time for me was before I had my parathyroid taken out.
Mm,
The pain was so intense. My bones ached. I didn't know that I could hurt so badly.
mm.
So it does make a difference. Once I got the parathyroid taken out, follow the diet. When I don't, my body aches and I don't want to ache. So if I don't want to ache, I have to follow the rules. I have to do what is good for me.
Yeah. And talking about, moving and activity. Um, I always talk about activity in that way, in something that will make you feel better and something that brings about immediate positive results. There's no minimum amount of activity that's beneficial for you, and all movement counts. Sitting up straighter counts because that requires a lot of the muscles of your core to sit up straight. Standing, if you're sitting for a long time, counts as movement. And I know that isolation and quarantine present new challenges for obtaining physical activity, just with the difficulty in going outside and engaging with others and visiting a recreational facility where you can get activity, but it also could be an opportunity to use what we are to make our peripheral environment one of active movement. I know I started just, if it was raining outside and I couldn't go for a walk, I would just go up and down the stairs in my apartment. And, that gets your heart rate up. That gives me the distraction and the break from screen time that I needed. And if I'm feeling frustrated, it kind of helps me let go of that. So it can be helpful to do those things where our culture sometimes thinks that exercise can only happen in the gym. It can only happen if you're sweating profusely and panting. But movement, gentle movement counts, and it can really improve your physical, emotional health.
As a young woman, I was quite active. I was a cyclist and I loved to rollerblade. And as I had children, I stopped all of that. Recently, prior to COVID, I had decided that I would recommit to exercise. And I had started taking yoga at my dialysis clinic. And of course, that has stopped. They also had a program where we were able to cycle while on the machine, and that really helps. And what I've noticed in these past weeks of being less active is my body is beginning to stiffen up, and I have aches and pains in places I didn't have them before. So I've had to rethink, what am I going to do to become more active? I have to become more active. I used to walk a lot. I haven't been doing that. So I need to become more active and take out my pages from kidney school or sit and be fit and do exercises while I'm in the dialysis chair. It makes a difference.
Yes, it definitely makes a difference. And there's the goal here, if you're seeing the slideshow on the screen, of at least 150 minutes a week. This is this is from the Department of Health and Human Services Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans. This is a great goal to achieve, and it's based on the fact that you get the most health benefits out of it. But again, it's a goal. It's the top rung of a ladder, and you have to start from where you are. If you are not moving at all, maybe just sitting and doing maybe chair-based exercises can be really important. Next slide. And this slide goes into some more benefits of physical activity. And I talk about one of the most important things, I think, is maintaining muscle mass, because the aging process, unfortunately, coincides with losing muscle mass. And it's activity and movement can help us maintain that strength, maintain that flexibility, and prevent that loss of muscle that coincides with aging. And benefits of physical activity can be immediate, with reducing anxiety and lowering blood pressure. It can improve your quality of sleep, emotional health, brain health, reduce the risk or slow the progression of certain chronic diseases such as heart disease and diabetes, cancer, obesity, osteoporosis. The World Health Organization came out with this campaign alongside the COVID-19 outbreak, called Be Active at Home, Healthy at Home. And what they say is, like, use what you have in your environment to get active. Stretch at home. You can dance for a few minutes. You don't need actual weights. If 2 cans might be enough to get a little bit of that resistance and things like that. Next slide. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about sleep and health maintenance. Sleep is something that's not prioritized very often in healthcare, unless you're having like a lot of trouble sleeping. But and as a culture, I think we sleep is the first thing to go often. We don't really prioritize it. There's sometimes, because of your circumstances, the only time you can get things done is really late at night or really early in the morning, especially if you have kids at home and things like that. And the reality is, sleep has been linked to a number of diseases and conditions, including increasing your weight, increasing. It affects the way insulin is works in your body, and so it puts you at risk for metabolic syndrome like diabetes, like high cholesterol. And it also is associated with mood disorders like depression, and can impact your immune system if you don't get enough sleep. So it's really important to try to get as much sleep as possible, and to make sure that sleep is good quality sleep. And in this era where our daily routines have changed so much, it's so important to stick to a good sleep routine. Similar sleep and wake times, increasing exposure to sunlight during the day is really important, because that maintains our body's natural circadian rhythm. So we get light in the day, and then get tired at night when the sun goes down. And then avoiding stimulants close to bedtime, or stimulating activities close to bedtime, such as caffeine, alcohol, or snacking close to bedtime. The other thing that's really important to notice is a lot of our screens have this blue light that comes out, and that can affect our melatonin levels in our body. So some of the smartphones and computers actually have blue light filters, night shift functions, where they block that blue light, and that can maybe help prevent some of that disruption to our natural sleep rhythm. And there's a lot of worry and frustration right now with everything going on with COVID-19, and sometimes you have to prepare to go to bed. You have to prepare your body for relaxation, and that can take up to an hour of just getting your mindset in that in a place where you're able to sleep.
Yes, I find that many dialysis patients have difficulty sleeping.
Mm.
For me, as I said, and being confined to the home, it makes it, and being less active, it's not as easy to be active. But
Mhm.
I find that when I am active, I have no problem going to sleep.
Yeah, and that's a great strategy to help with that, being active during the day, just to maintain that healthy sleep pattern.
Yes, because many of us don't work. We're
Hmm.
home. You're sitting around in front of the television, not moving. So I would suggest find a program where you can do some mild exercises while sitting in the chair and movement of your body to get the blood flowing. It really helps.
Hmm. I agree. Next slide. So here we're, there's a lot of people dealing with just daily stressors, a lot more daily stressors because of the pandemic, because of the fear, because of the uncertainty of everything that's going on. And that's why I think it's so much more important to let go of some of those negative things that don't serve you, including your own judgments and your own perceptions, which can really have a significant effect. Um, and then, finding an outlet for that stress, finding a way to cope is really important. I know, Stephanie, you've had to deal with a lot of this, and you have some pretty good coping mechanisms as well.
Yes, I have to go out at least 3 times a week to go to my dialysis treatment. So the best thing I can do, turn off the TV, don't listen to all the hype, people sending me magical cures for COVID. I have to arm myself. I have to mask up. I double mask up. I wear gloves. I wrap my hair. I have to go out into the world. Therefore, I try to meet it as positively as possible. I am my own foot soldier in this. So I arm myself with the tools that I know that are going to protect me. That releases me from the stress of it all.
Yeah, and understanding that, we can do as much as we can to prepare um, to be as prepared as possible. But, this quote, I think, sums it up well. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. So it's about finding your own way of navigating everything that's going on. And journaling is a great way to write down your thoughts, concerns, and fears, and just have it not sit in your head and fester. And if that works for you, or getting involved in hobbies and finding that flow where you're just able to get lost in something that brings you pleasure and brings you enjoyment, whether that's a hobby that you have currently or a new hobby that you want to pick up. Art, music, knitting, gardening, engaging with pets. And I think that, staying in touch with family and friends through technology is so important as well. For that, we're social beings. We need that connection with others, and doing that in a positive way, where it's, away from the fear, away from the concerns, is a really important thing to maintain, while we're all going through this, until we get back to life, as
Yes,
normal as possible once again.
my positive mantra is ride the wave. You can't stop life. So ride the wave. Yesterday, I, for the first time since all of this started, I visited my granddaughter because she had a school project and we had to make a wigwam. How do you make a wigwam? But we made a wigwam. So I was very happy about that. Yeah, something to, we were careful. I arrived, I had my gloves, my mask, all of that. And While we couldn't socially distance, we had to be close to one another. But you have to do things in such a way to de-stress. If you need to wear a mask, wear a mask. You need to wear gloves, wear gloves. Do what you need to do and find something to do, a craft project, a dance, to make you feel better.
Yes, and you know, waiting for this all to end, I mean, who knows? We can't predict the future. We don't know when we're going to be on the other side of this thing, indefinitely. And so this is the time to to use the time that we have, use this, you know, special time where we're focused on health in general, because we're talking about a disease, to get us committed to our own goals. And so with that in mind, next slide. We challenge you, and you know, we'll participate as well in a healthy habits challenge. So is there a behavior that you would like to start after listening to the presentation today, and that you can incorporate into your life? And we want to do this 4-week challenge, and ask you to share your healthy habits with us. I personally really want to hit a step goal, you know, maybe like 5,000 steps, at least 5 days a week for 4 weeks. Right now, I get maybe about 2 or 3,000, just because it's hard sometimes with all of the work to do and sitting at a computer to get outside and move. But I would really love to do that. And Stephanie, I know you had a similar challenge in mind.
Yes, I have two for myself. There's an app on my Samsung phone, Samsung Health. The first thing I'm going to do is look at it, and then I'm going to commit to something within the program. I also have a stepper in my house, and I'm going to commit. I haven't decided how many steps I want to achieve, but I'm going to set a program goal for myself where I do that. I also happen to live in a fourth story walk up, so I get a little bit of exercise walking up and down the stairs, but I'm going to commit to a regular program.
That's wonderful. So we'd love to hear you, hear your healthy habits that you're trying to do, you're already doing, or you want to try to commit to doing. And we have the ESRD network on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and an email address for Danielle Andrews' email address. So with that, thank you all for your attention. I really enjoyed giving this presentation and working with Danielle and Stephanie on it, and we'll take any comments or questions at this time.
At this time, there's no questions in the chat. I'm just checking. So anybody has any questions or just comments, please do so now.
Well, this is Stephanie. With regards to the challenge, if there's anyone out there who would like to partner with me in committing to increasing our mobility, our movement, our flexibility, I've noticed, especially as I get older, that I'm losing muscle mass. So if there's anyone who would like to partner with me, please let me know.
Thank you, Stephanie. Right now we have a couple of comments, people just thanking us for the presentation. I think everybody look for us on social media. We'll post the challenge on there, and we're gonna check in with people to see. And please let us know how you're doing and what challenges you've decided to do. I think Stephanie's challenge is a really a good one, and maybe there's something else that you'd like to try. definitely let us know. And it's just making it your own. I think that's the theme of the day. We still have a couple more minutes, so if you have any questions or comments, please let us know.
Okay, so the next steps, please complete the post-webinar survey to provide your feedback. The network is really looking to understand the needs and the complexities that our ESRD patients are going through. So as you fill out the feedback, we are looking for topics that you want us to host or how frequently you want our meetings to be. Also, please note the slides and recordings of this webinar will be made available. And look out for more emails about our upcoming patient webinar series. I would also like to note that the ESRD Network of New York has created a COVID-19 webinar series, has created a COVID-19 calendar that is on our website. And the network would also like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Murea and Stephanie Dixon for participating today. Before we end, do we have any questions? If there are no further questions, we will end the presentation here.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.